everybody. Today we're going to tackle this cherry burl. In preparation for cutting it up, I think that I watched Jim Sprague's video on cutting burls and crotches at least 3 or 4 times. And I thought I had an idea of what I was going to do, and then I got out here and I looked at it and I went back and watched it again. But ultimately, I think I've sorted out the way that I want to do this. The burl is on the smaller of these 2 branches, so I'm going to cut it right down the middle from heart to heart on the branch that it encases. The larger branch that's on the right there is not really attached to it, so I'm going to try to just slice that off as cleanly as I can just to get it out of the way. And I'm going to look at it again and make sure that I really think that this is how I want to do it, because I really don't want to screw this up. So I'm going to cut this straight down just off center of the pith to one side. One of the sides is a really nice, very circular, almost looks like a burl cap. So I want to keep that one intact, and then I'll cut the pith out of the other side. This side still has the pith in it, at least a little bit of it from the branch. But I should be able to get some nice things out of that, at least one bowl. This piece is fantastic. I should be able to get a good sized bowl and at least one core out of this one. I didn't really make any attempt to get this round. I wanted to leave it a little bit oversized so that I had a little bit of flexibility in moving it around and making sure that I could get the best piece out of it that I can. Using that circle template, I decided where the center point for the spur drive was going to go. And then I figured out approximately where the tail center should go and drilled a hole with the Forstner bit so that the cup center can push against the blank nice and flat, and readjusted the position of the cup center so that the face that's been chainsawed is perpendicular. I really love live edge cherry burl pieces, but this burl is already shaped like a bowl, and in the interest of making the best use out of what I have here, I'm going to just do a regular style bowl, which I'll then be able to core. Because this piece is still so out of round and out of balance, I'm having to start pretty slow. I'm only at about 270 RPMs here. I'll increase the speed as I go along here and get it more round and more into balance. Because I'm still turning relatively slowly here, and there are still some pretty big air gaps, you see that I'm not really maintaining bevel contact through a lot of this, and I'm not really worried about it. I'm just trying to get most of the material out of the way and get to the point where I can get the speed up some more. here I'm just scraping. Now we're getting to the point where the speed is up around 640 and it's making the cutting a lot easier. There are still a lot of air gaps where the bowl isn't true yet, but with its speed up some, it makes them go by faster and it's not nearly such a bouncy cut. We're almost there. And look at that grain. Cherry Burl is just one of my absolute favorites. I'm just about down to enough solid wood on the bottom where I should be able to get a good tenon. Whenever possible, I'll do these little step cuts, especially down near the tenon, but also up along the side of the bowl. This is a 1/2 inch 40/40 gouge, and I keep bumping it off of the bevel and coming away from it a little bit because it's just getting too big of a cut and it kind of is complaining about it. But honestly, I like to leave some sort of steps in there. I find that it helps me to visualize the curve better than if I just go through and make one sweeping curve. I'm going to use the 100mm jaws on my Supernova 2 chuck, so I'm preparing the tenon with the dovetail. I'm always really careful to make sure that I make the best dovetail that I can, and especially in this case because I'm going to be coring it, so there's going to be some torque involved. And we don't want it to come flying off the lathe, right? At this point, I'm still planning to rough turn the bowls and put them in the kiln, so I've set the coring system up to cut the thickness of the large bowl at about 10% of the total diameter. This is the woodcut bowl saver coring system. I'll put a link in the corner to the video that I did about setting it up and using it for the first time. The burl has some cracks in it already. They haven't gotten any worse, but I decided that I didn't want to put it in the kiln and have them crack to the point where it was going to be a problem. One of the oak burls that I have in there is looking a little bit scary, so I decided I'm going to just go ahead and turn this one thin and turn it green. The bowl's still wet, and if I'm going to turn it green, it needs to be thin and it needs to be even. So what I'm doing is going in a little bit at a time, getting it to the thickness, making sure that it's consistent, and then coming back with my negative rake scraper and just cleaning up the ridges and making sure that it's smooth. And then I'll go in a little bit further with the bowl gouge, and then I'll use the scraper to blend those transitions in. You can see how quickly it dries, and I'm really surprised it held its overall shape really well. It has only gone just slightly oval. Since I'm going to finish turn this green, I need to get rid of this little step that I put down in the bottom of the bowl. I probably could leave it, but I just don't know that I would be able to get the wall thickness consistent all the way down, and I really don't want it to crack down there at the bottom. So I'm just going to take that little ridge out and smooth it and blend all of this back together before I finish the inside bottom of the bowl. The shape of this is not changing much, even though it is drying as I'm going along here, so I got lucky and it didn't move too far and give me a bunch of weird spiral chatter marks. I'm starting with 80 grit on a firm backing pad. I'll do inside and outside. And then I'm going to do the rim with this thing. And this is just a popsicle stick with a piece of pipe insulation glued onto it. It gives me something to hold onto. If it happens to get caught in any of the voids on that natural edge, it's just going to fling it out of the way and not grab my fingers. I found it's really helpful for doing the edges of stuff, and especially this because it didn't move much. You can see how nicely it's running, but there is a little bit of a wobble. Then I put that 80 grit disc on a soft interface pad and went back over the whole thing, and then I used the soft one all the way up to, I went to 320 because that's all the sandpaper I have right now. I just ordered some more. This is denatured alcohol, gets the dust off and lets me see if I missed anything that I want to fix. And this is a 3-pound cut of shellac that I made from de-waxed blonde shellac flakes. I normally cut back the shellac with a Scotch-Brite pad, but I put a pretty thick coat of this 3-pound on, which is thicker to start with, and there were some kind of drippy spots, so I went over it with 320 on the soft interface pad, and then got all the dust off of it, and then I put a 1-pound coat of shellac on top of this. And after the 1-pound coat dried, I did go back over that with the Scotch-Brite pad and then the microfiber cloth to get any remaining dust off. I didn't use any abrasive sanding paste on this. I'm just going straight to Brad's tongue wax over the 3-pound and 1-pound cuts of shellac. So I put a pretty liberal coat on and I let that sit, I think, overnight. I buffed the tongue wax off with a paper towel and the lathe running for as much of it as I felt comfortable doing. I bought a plastic polishing kit, I think from Amazon, that's got a 3-inch pad and then a bunch of different foam discs for polishing like acrylic and stuff. I took one of the flat ones and I adhered a piece of gray Scotch-Brite pad to it, and then I just used that for buffing off the tongue wax. I'm using an old glue block on my faceplate for a jam chuck right now. I don't have a dedicated wood jam chuck that fits in my 100mm jaws yet. I need to make one. So I have it on a jam chuck and I'm going to oh so carefully take the tenon off and hope I don't go through the bottom. I'm going to use my spear point scraper just to take a final tiny light pass across the bottom and get rid of the ridges that were there from the bowl gouge. Oi. Oh boy. I'm pretty geeked about this. I'm also really excited that I have more pieces of this burl to play with, so stay tuned for those. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Until next time, y'all be safe out there. Escape. I wonder what that means. It's funny, it's spelled just like the word escape.